Hi, everyone. It's Shannon Port, and I welcome you to the Art of the Feminine podcast. I have my chat open, and it looks like there are some people here. I'm just going to ask you if you can let me know if you can hear me, and then we'll get started right away. Oh no, I don't know what that was, but okay, just one second. I just lost I lost my chat, and I'm going to open it back up again. I've been getting ads on my own channel. All right. Okay, here we are. Oh, yay. Nice to see you. So can you guys hear me? And then, oh, good. Wonderful. All right. Welcome. Welcome to this very special Art of the Feminine podcast today. We're going to take a look at some archetypal wisdom that is really, really active and alive on our planet right now. And so I'm really looking forward to it. This is the full moon lunar eclipse happening in Capricorn. It's happening on July 16th. The eclipse is conjunct Pluto. The moon in Capricorn at 24 degrees will be conjunct Pluto. The sun will be in Cancer at 24 degrees. And so we have some very intense archetypal energy that's governing this eclipse. And we're going to go into that. We're going to peel back the layers of the subconscious mind and really begin to take a look at something that's quite deep. I mean, I'll be honest with you that the topic today is a little bit heavy. The name of the video is The Last Judgment. And so oftentimes when we think of the Last Judgment, we think of the last judgment by the divine coming down on humanity. But in this podcast, we're referring to the Last Judgment as our own inner activation of the archetype of Pluto. And so we're going to really, really look at Pluto today. I've been really looking forward to this eclipse. There's a lot of energy moving on the planet right now. I just want to say, starting with the solstice, it was summer solstice here, and we did the solar consciousness video. And then moving into the solar eclipse, first of all, I felt the solstice was very special this year. And I know I work pretty intimately with the energies of these astrological alignments. And so I'm usually pretty in tune with what's happening. So solstice this year felt very, very special. And then the solar eclipse was more powerful than I could have ever imagined. It's one of the most powerful solar eclipses that in my years of working with archetypal wisdom, astrology, meditating and tuning in, one of the most powerful eclipses that I've ever felt. I felt almost overwhelmed with energy coming in, and I got so much feedback from other people. I like to think of it as kind of like an upgrade, but there was definitely an alchemy happening there. There was definitely the eclipses happen in alignment with the north and south nodes of the moon. And these nodes represent our subconscious mind. And so all eclipses are really, really clearing out and bringing to the surface things that we've had held within us, our patterns, our blocks, our familial patterns, and that are karmic patterns that we carry. So the eclipses, what they do is, and especially the solar eclipse, will blast it with a higher dimensional light. And so what happens is that there's a quick work that's done. And so I felt it. I just want to say that I really felt it. And I know a lot of you did too, because I'm working with a big group right now, and I had a lot of emails from people. A lot of people felt this as a bit traumatic. And so I just want to say it was like it was so much energy. When we get hit with that much energy, sometimes it can make us feel destabilized at first, and just like so much is changing, but we don't quite have a grip on what it is. It feels like the rug's pulled out from underneath us, but what's really happening is that our consciousness is expanding, and some of the things that we really don't need anymore are just right there. We're swimming in them, and we get to see them so that we know that it's time to let them go. And so I could go on and on about that, but we'll see if it comes in a little bit later. So today we're going to look at some of the harder topics. We're going to talk a lot about sexuality on the planet. We're going to go into some of the darker side of sexuality. I won't have time to go into it too deeply, but I want to say that as many of you know that have followed my work since 2012, as it became more public, and I started doing a podcast on iTunes, The foundation of the work at Art of the Feminine is on healing the collective sexuality on planet Earth. And I want to start out by saying that has nothing to do with any kind of judgment towards each individual expression of sexuality, because on this platform and in the work that I've done, we believe that every single human being has the right, this is this Pluto energy, to discover and explore their power through sexuality. I would, and so also I want to say that I have a playlist on the Shannonport channel on YouTube. And so if you're interested and you go to click over to Shannonport channel, I put it's normally in a playlist, but I put it out on the front page, a year's worth of podcasts called The New Human Sexual Paradigm. And I go really deeply. It was transferred from iTunes. There's a lot of information on almost every topic. I'm still expanding and still going deeper. And I know I'm working with some of you to go into even new territory around sexuality, because there's a lot to look at as our world is changing. There's a lot more of expressions that need to be honored and validated. And we definitely are on board for that here at this platform. So we're going to look at the topic of sexuality. And I want to say that there's so much to say. I want to say we're at a tipping point. We've been at a tipping point since 2012, and even since the 90s, but we're crossing over into a new threshold with the North Node in Cancer. The North Node is in the sign of the lunar principle, but also the feminine, the mother archetype on the planet and within every human being. So the North Node is going to be in Cancer. I can't remember. It goes into 2020. I forget which month, but we're on for quite a while now, where the eclipses are happening in Cancer and Capricorn. So the Divine Mother and the Divine Father energies of creation, how we create, are active in all of us. They're active in this is all psychic energy. It's not necessarily the human mother and the human father. It's the energetic mind stuff of the archetypal mother and archetypal father. And that's what my special area of concentration is here at this, at Art of the Feminine. We work with consciousness as energy, and the archetypes are expressions of packets of that energy. So the mother energy, which is very, very needed at this time, and it's a lunar eclipse in the sign of the father, conjunct Pluto, is what it's all about right now. We're awakening the mother energy, the true consciousness and the divine love and the heart energy of the mother in the human race, in all human beings, in men, in women, in children, in even in plants and animals and minerals are waking up. And every expression in between. It doesn't matter which sex you identify, whatever you are as a human being, you are also discovering the energy of the heart and how we create and how we nurture each other on this planet. So it's the feminine aspect of all of us that has the power to heal the world. And so that's when I originally started my work, Art of the Feminine. It was about really bringing the message of love onto the planet, but not just in a pretty way or in a flowery way, but in the power of love. And we're going to look at the power love archetypes. We're going to look at Mars. Mars is a tower. It's the fire of the Holy Spirit. Pluto is the gatekeeper of the abyss and truly represents the soul in its true power. And Saturn represents the highest function of the mother and the archetypes. It's the world, it's cosmic consciousness. And she really represents all of creation in a feminine polarity. And so I just want to say this at the beginning of this video again, and this is not meaning women, this is meaning the feminine in all of us is being activated at this time, because it truly has the power to move through humanity and change things. And we're seeing this movement. I've been talking about it everywhere because we're seeing it everywhere. Okay, so yes. We're waking up. We could call this the time of judgment because it's our inner judgment. Judgment is the power to call it like it is and to step in the higher octave of Pluto. Pluto is judgment in the archetypes. Something different is on, and technology also. Technology, this is the age of Aquarius, ruled by Uranus. Uranus governs technology. So technology is going to play a huge role in everything that's happening on the planet right now. Some of the darker underbelly stuff of this period, time period, and also some of the high level, sophisticated, very savvy inner technology that we're all using and awakening at this time. Our brains are being, when our brains are hooked up to our hearts, they become a super galactic computer. So the brain in 3D consciousness is ruled by the ego. When it's connected to the heart, the brain is, it's out of control. It's so powerful, and it serves, it serves love and it serves truth. And there's much more we could say about this, but Uranus is in the sign Taurus at this time. Uranus will be squaring Mars. Mars will be in Leo at the time of the eclipse. And so just important to know, Uranus rules the age of Aquarius. All right, so lunar eclipses. Hi, it's good to see all of you. I'm going to take a peek down in a moment and see what you have to say today. So the lunar eclipse, this is the way it, because it's a subconscious mind, eclipses really affect our subconscious mind. It's at the south node. The south node is really the underbelly. It's like Piscean energy. It's like the dark moon, what's really hidden, but it's also what's really lodged in there. And so that's why we think of the south node as being very connected to past lives and past experiences and karma that we have accumulated, because, as well as the good karma, both the good and the bad, because it's the deep layer that's actually ruling us, but sometimes blindly ruling us. And so the eclipse is conjunct the south node. The south node, I think, is at 17. The eclipse is, it's pretty close. It's 7 degrees, but it's a south node eclipse. These eclipses, and when it's the moon, it really represents the deep subconscious. It represents kind of a culmination or a fulfillment of something. I often, with lunar eclipses, do experience a removal of something, and it comes on like a huge initiation, because it's like, it's now, the eclipse can also be used in a negative way to cover something up. And we're going to talk about that, because there's a lot happening on the planet right now with healing sexuality. And we don't want this eclipse energy to be used to mask anything. We want it to be used to unveil and to bring it up out into the open. There's a lot of planetary archetypal energy active right now to help us do that. But we all have to be a part of that. We all have to stay awake. We have to stay awake and hold the space. That's what this video is about today. Holding the space of the Last Judgment. The Last Judgment is when all souls come in and are ascended up into the higher level of consciousness, and truly the veil is removed and we can see each other again. Truly, we can see the spirit. The spirit is the real ego. The lower 3D ego is birthed in Capricorn, and it's the mother energy in Cancer that births the true spiritual ego that then progresses into Leo and becomes sun energy. It can still have that lower ego energy, but Cancer is the mother that births the Christic force on Earth. Capricorn is also a manifesting contractive energy. However, Capricorn is where we can get stuck. It's the devil with the 3D ego, and that's why we have Capricorn associated with the patriarchy. So I'm going to take a breath, take a quick peek. Then what we're going to do, we're going to go right into the archetypal energies of the alignments at the time of the eclipse, because there's big things we want to talk about, really big things. So it's been a wild few weeks. Yeah. I mean, since solstice, since June 21st, and even before that, but everything is moving. It was the feeling of, I work with these energies. I just want to say, moment to moment, every single day. I couldn't believe it after the solar summer solstice. I was hesitant to embrace it so much, but I was like, something really moved. And then the solar, this total solar eclipse was like, oh wow, it was so much energy. So then I had to sit with it for a few days and just observe what was happening. But we're moving, what I'm seeing is moving into the lunar eclipse, even more big energy. Oh, hello. It's been a bit jarring. Break the loneliness and longing out of my heart. Yeah, for true healing. I'm so glad you brought up loneliness. Um, I know, and loneliness is something that I was part of my path that I really had to work with. And even with some of the work I've done spiritually required a lot of hermit energy, but I had to work through the archetype of isolation and loneliness on a deep deep, profound level. I know all about it. And I know that it's something that, because I got to work through it, I'm here to help heal it. And this is a time to connect. We're all feeling, it's just, we're linking up in the heart. Pluto is Shin. It's the Hebrew letter Shin. It's the fire of the Divine Mother. And we no longer can fear each other, because when you carry that awakened fire, truly, when you carry the fire of Shin, you are the cosmic human being. You are the true totality of life itself, and nothing can ever hurt you. Meaning, we have to be practical in 3D, obviously, so I'm not trying to take you out of your practical energy, but it gives you such a fierce divine energy. Pluto, this is how I was seeing it last night, so I just want to show. So Pluto is this master soul energy, and it governs on the tree of life, the abyss. It governs Doth. Doth is the abyss between the supernal triangle, the upper three, Sephiroth, and the lower microcosm of humanity. And so we have the divine, and then we have the. I think I'm going to wait for that, because I wrote something for later on in this podcast. I'm just kind of going back to what it was. Yes. So the ego, the solar ego, governs that midway station between the supernal, the divine, the spiritual, and then the soul level, the body level. The soul fell into body level consciousness. So our soul is now locked in what we would call the envelope of the senses. The soul energy is trapped in this 3D body. And so until we've done some of this alchemical mastery work, we don't have access to the full spectrum of who we really are. And that's what our body of light is, the full being of consciousness that we truly are. So we're clearing emotional energy at the eclipse. Find out what house the eclipse is happening for you. I think for me, it's in my fifth house. Oh, it's been a long journey in that fifth house with Saturn and with Pluto there for years and years. And now the eclipse is there, but I've got it in my fifth. Find out the house. Just do your chart somewhere and look at what house this lunar eclipse is taking place, and just to see which archetypal energy in your consciousness is being really highlighted, and you'll know for sure. But it's a broad, it also has a universal effect on all of humanity. Even if you don't know the house, it doesn't matter. The broader archetypal universal energy is present for the planet and for all of us. All right. It can be dramatic, it can be emotional, it can be like the fulfillment of some karmic thing that you've been waiting to happen, and bam, it can happen. It can be the removal of something. It can be shocking. You can have something change overnight, or it can be a heavy, slow realization that you need to deal with something or change something. And sometimes, depending where it's at, it can just be an automatic upgrade to who you are. So let's jump into it. Let's start to look at the archetypes. Question: do you use whole house? I use the whole house in general, but I look at I look at the houses based on the rising sign. So when you find out your rising sign, so that way you need to, if you only know your sun sign, you can use the whole house. But if you want to look at it through your ascendant, which is going to really have an effect on you in the world, do a chart so you can find out your rising sign. You'll need to know within 10 minutes of your birth to get that. And that's what I go by. So, because, for example, my fifth house starts in Sagittarius, but it covers all of Capricorn. So I consider Capricorn is in my fifth house. All right. So, all right, we've got the moon in Capricorn. The moon rules Cancer. So this eclipse is special because the moon rules the sign Cancer. The north node is in Cancer. Cancer rules mother energy. Cancer rules children. The moon also rules what is hidden. When we think about the moon, there's a dark side to the moon. So the feminine has a light side and a dark side, but it also governs things that are hidden or things that are tucked away, the things that happen on the dark side of the moon. So we have this feminine body, the moon, conjunct Pluto in a lunar eclipse. but it's special because the moon rules Cancer. And so it's not all the time that we have a south node eclipse with the ruler of the north node there. And so we have it at this eclipse. I'm seeing, so there's a lot happening on the planet with sexuality right now. And so this is why I brought up all the work of sexuality at Art of the Feminine. Things that we've been working with for a long time are it started with the Me Too movement. So Pluto rules Scorpio. When Jupiter entered Scorpio way back a couple years ago, um, Jupiter in Scorpio started the Me Too movement. And so we knew that was coming. We knew Jupiter was just going to expand things that have been secret, things that have been hidden, things about power around sexuality. So just remember Pluto, who governs Scorpio, that rules even the dark side of sexuality, it rules misused power of sexuality, is conjunct the lunar eclipse. The moon represents the mother energy, the heart, children, the innocent. It represents purity. And then the other side of that is it represents what's hidden. So that shows us right there that the energy, we're in phase two. Like to think it's even further along than that, but of this revelation that's coming into the collective consciousness to understand what really is holding us in bondage. And that's why in my work, and I don't expect everyone to agree with this, I was shown years ago that it was our sexuality that was keeping us bound here, that we fell through the carnal desires, and that there's a certain collective denial of, both denial of and misuse of sexual energy. And remember, this doesn't mean that there's one archetypal energy for everyone's sexuality, but it does mean where I draw the line at Art of the Feminine with saying that is that I draw the line at having a healthy sexuality where it includes whatever you want to include, as long as we're not taking from the innocent or using power against those who have not fully developed yet. And so it was funny. My mom just sent me an article, or for some reason I didn't get the link, but it was about the development of the teenage brain. And so I didn't get to read it, but I peeked around a little bit. And so our brain doesn't fully develop until we're 25 years old. The neurons aren't fully established. So the things that happen to us before 25 can prevent that full development from happening. But that being said, we know that our maturity and our ability to discern power and our own use of power, it's different for everybody depending on your planetary makeup, but we're not developed all the way until we're around 25. And even then, I think it's our Saturn return that makes us fully accountable for everything we do. We can all look back before our Saturn return. It happens around 27, 28, 29, but we can look back to the time when we were younger, and it might not even feel like we're the same person, because we are the same. We're the same soul, we're the same spirit. But what's happening is that we're starting to get used to power. We're going through adolescence and puberty. We're coming into our fuller ego, and we're starting to play with power. And we're playing it with it in the fallen paradigm, really, because that's what's beamed at us. We're shown the archetype of sexuality, we take it in and we become it. That's what we do. We learn that and it's true on this planet that there's only a small window where you have the most potent sexual market value. Let's call it the sexual market value. Let's say between 15 and maybe 30, 35. I mean, between 15 and 30, you have high sexual market value, and then it starts to decrease. Now, there's all different kinds of fetishes and things like that, but truly, if you look at the porn industry, if you understand what it is when people are in lust or what they're craving, oftentimes there's a signature. And please don't take this a wrong way. I'm not meaning to say that there isn't an appeal at every point on the spectrum, but the collective is obsessed with this particular window. And in the darker sides of sexuality, I haven't gone into this in a long time on this channel, but is going towards children. And the collective now is with the programming, and we have Mars in Leo, we have Mercury in Leo right now, both under the law of suggestion, beaming. That's where that law of suggestion comes in. The collective outer forces right now are beaming the age range of sexuality younger and younger and younger, to where there's no boundary. There's no longer a respect for the fact that the neural network, the true brain capacity, is not developed. It cannot make the decisions that will serve it on the subconscious level down the road. We all know, and I've been mentoring people now for about 15 years. So part of my work has been in working in healing sexuality, and I teach a course called Light Body Tantra, and so where it's the whole body of knowledge that's come in about how our sexuality affects us throughout our life. And I've had the opportunity to work one-on-one with people and see, uh, specifically listen to people who are older, over 35, then begin to talk about their life from a child up. And sexuality is always huge. And the family dynamic is always huge. Those two things are inescapable from the subconscious mind, how we developed sexually and what our relationship is to our familial archetype, and how that lifted us up or how that stunted us or wounded us. And then we carry those wounds later on into life. So, okay, so let's look at, okay, so the moon is in Capricorn. I want to keep going on this. Pluto is in Capricorn. So we just touched on why it's so significant. We also have Saturn in Capricorn, retrograde now. Um, Oh, yeah. A Saturn return? Absolutely. It will affect. I just looked down and saw that question. It will have a definite effect on your Saturn return if your Saturn return is right now. So, oh, absolutely. And I'm working with a lot of Saturn returns right now. So, oh, really? Yes. So, because there's so much activity happening there, Saturn is at 16 degrees. Now, I want to talk about this number 16. We're going to go into the archetypal wisdom today. 16 is the tower. And 16 is Mars energy. It's the desire force. The desire force of Mars. Mars is the lower octave of Pluto. Pluto rules judgment in the archetypes. It's the letter Shin. Mars is the letter Pe. It's a Holy Spirit letter. It's a fire letter, and it represents the mouth. And the mouth is actually one of our greatest sexual centers, with our tongue and our soft palate. The mouth is another womb of creation. And so we've got strong Mars energy right now. Saturn is at 16 degrees in Capricorn, and Venus is at 16 degrees in Cancer. So we'll just take a breath here. I'm going to return to that and talk. It's a huge, huge opposition in my sort of revelations for what is happening at this lunar eclipse on July 16th, next Tuesday. Saturn opposite Venus. I like to think of it, Venus opposite Saturn is really big. Venus is heart energy. Venus rules Taurus, the earth, with Uranus and Taurus right now squaring Mars, and Venus rules Libra, balance, justice, equilibrium, art, beauty. So Venus is a power player at the time of the eclipse, opposite Saturn. Now, I said in the description for this video, Venus and Saturn work together. They're both agents of the Divine Mother and the Divine Feminine. On the Tree of Life, Saturn is Binah. It's the greatest power of God to birth reality into form. The absolute comes from nothingness into matter, and it's through the Binah that all of that energy flows. And then she has grades of energy throughout the tree. The last grade being in Malkuth, in the earth, which is really our foundation. Malkuth is also ruled by Saturn. The earth is ruled by Saturn. Venus works with Saturn because Venus is a gateway of that energy. Venus is another energy that helps contract. Both energies, Venus and Saturn, remember, totally opposite each other at the eclipse. Saturn rules mastery because through our karmic understanding and through our lessons, we become masters. Venus rules mastery. Venus is about turning pleasure and desire into the one true pleasure and desire, which is to understand who you are, to know the divine. We call it divine love within the heart, so that you can know it in humanity. Until Venus becomes turned upward, when she's only turned outward, it's about pleasure. And it can be the shadow side of the feminine as well. It's misplaced beauty sometimes because it's beauty as the only, well, there's a whole podcast we can do on beauty. I won't go too deeply into it, but Venus can even misuse beauty to attract the dark and to create the dark. And so Venus has been used that way in this dimension. And so we are working to activate our full Venus energy. And That's the art of the feminine, to activate that heart energy within us. We need Saturn to do this. So Venus is in the sign of the mother, the sign of the moon, and conjunct the north node at the eclipse. So it's saying this is a Venus eclipse. The eclipse is happening at the south node, but Venus is highlighting the north node of the Cancerian energy and saying mother energy, children energy, love energy in all humanity is a must right now. In order to deal with what's coming out, what's being revealed in humanity about some of the darker sides and some of the underbelly, we have to stay in our heart. We have to ride this out and keep raising the vibration, keep raising the vibration. In the past, we tend to go into fear, or we tend to go into that drama of it. It's like, oh, we're going to take this out and take this down, and it becomes like a game, a polarity game. And on one level, we are all, a lot of people who are awake have been wanting to have more and more realizations for the whole planet, but we have to remember that they have to come in love. Otherwise, it's just another game. It's just another, we could say it's the fall of the patriarchy, but the fall of the patriarchy has a meaning of it being part of the war. We don't want it to be part of the war. Now the fall is on, because the fall is the tower, and we've got Saturn at 16, Venus at 16, and this eclipse is happening on the 16th. I just want to say that was the first thing that came in for me, was that it's a tower eclipse, so there's big stuff happening. But we want to raise it up. The Last Judgment is the judgment of truth. It's when each one of us decides, you know what? I've tasted the world and I've tasted materialism. I've turned a blind eye long enough. I've been comfortable being on the sidelines and just letting reality be dictated to me from the hierarchical, patriarchal programming that is all about domination, power, the elite. Only, this power structure believes in two things. It believes in giving power to those who have, the great, great, great haves. And don't fool yourself, it's the great haves, the very top, and those who have a high sexual market value. If you're in that category, the patriarchy is okay with you. You can be used. However, that's not necessarily a good thing, and the rest are programmable. Now I want to say, I'm just putting that out because this is about sexuality. This is about the buying and selling of human beings as just empty shells of sex with some soul energy to kind of keep the power, the robbing, because it's no fun to rob an empty shell. You need a shell that has some soul energy, because part of the darkness is the overtaking of innocence. And so when we see some of the crimes against humanity and children and all human beings, all of us, we see that there has been, without the emotional energy, which is the feminine, it's no fun. There's got to be some emotional energy. In other words, you've got to have, your heart's got to be beating, and you've got to have emotional energy to be in that value as well. We'll talk about that a little more. I just want to make sure I didn't make that too dark. We want to, what is valuable in this system? If you have money, if you're a slave, or if you fit into the programming and are really, really marketable. And we see that it's changing, but we see that in across all platforms. Sex sells. We know that sex sells, and that's the message. Sex sells. There's a beautiful aspect to that, but we live in the paradigm where it's the numbing, hypnotic trance state of that energy for in the collective. And we'll talk more about that. I talk a lot about that in those podcasts that I did. So now moving on. All right. Venus rules the heart. Just remember that. And she's in with the mother, with the moon in Cancer. Neptune is in Pisces, squaring Jupiter. Neptune is in its own sign. Pisces is where the real underbelly is housed. The deepest, darkest energy is in there, but it's also the most spiritual energy. And that is because, and Pisces has that lunar energy. That is because Pisces, the Neptune is 12, which is the 2 through the 1, and the 2 is the high priestess, the moon. So there's a lot of moon energy in Pisces, a lot of no boundary energy and divine spiritual energy in Pisces. So that it makes it a good scapegoat to hide the dark. And that's what the moon represents. The moon represents that because it's innocent and pure and divine in this frequency, it has the capacity to also be where we hide things. Um, Pisces is squaring Jupiter. Jupiter is in Sagittarius at 16. Neptune in Pisces at 18. 18 is the moon in the archetype. So it's at its own, but Neptune is at the archetypal energy. This is all really, really so obvious at this eclipse. That's why I'm saying the numbers. 18 is the moon. It's the dark moon. And Pisces is there. Neptune is there. Excuse me. Uranus and Taurus. Oh, we need to say Eris is in Aries, squaring the eclipse, right on, squaring the sun and the moon and Pluto at this eclipse. Huge, huge justice energy, huge energy of calling something out, huge energy of calling out injustice against the feminine aspect of all of us, not just people in a female container, but all of humanity. And so we all have a feminine side that has been under this lockdown. Now, I just want to, I hope I didn't wait too long to say this. Always talk about the masculine energy as well. In fact, Capricorn is the most powerful, and Aries is in Aries, and the eclipses in Capricorn are the divine patriarchal energy. We need the feminine to heal, and we need the patriarchal energy in all of us to build and to get out there and create institutions and new structures. We need Capricorn energy and Aries energy to create new structures that we can pour the healing energy of the feminine heart into. And so the masculine energy, ultra, ultra important. But we're working to heal some of the feminine energy. That's what this particular podcast is about. So Taurus, Uranus is in Taurus. Uranus is squaring Mars in Leo. Mars is in Leo. It's in the sign of that solar ego, the sign of the sun, the sign of the heart, the sign of sexuality. Leo is the sign of sex. It's the fifth house. It's the sign of sexuality. Mars is there. Mars governs the sexual force, the desire force. So Mars is right in that sexual energy, squaring Uranus, bringing changes on Earth. I know we're really going into the lecture of this today. I'm going to take a quick peek. I had to stop fighting what is. Yeah, well, there's a way that we can work with what is. Yeah. To serve. Cap ascendant. Oh, childhood here to serve. Beautiful. Yeah. I want to say something. A lot of the millennials right now have Uranus and Neptune together in Capricorn. So there's a lot of power in that generation to bring spiritual change onto the planet. There's a lot of millennials that have that conjunction in Capricorn. Just know that that's an energy that's going to bring spirituality onto the planet. By spirituality, I just mean truth, love, divine love onto the planet. When we talk about divine love, we're not talking about some like wishy-washy, flowery thing, even though I like that definition too. We're talking about pure power. Divine love is the power to love everyone. I'm talking about this a lot in light body yoga right now, that we need power to love, because we're working with the solar plexus. We work with the solar plexus on the solar eclipse. Without power, we can't really love. If our power's been stripped, we don't have it takes power to love someone, because power is about understanding who you are. It's about being able to speak the truth and speak for yourself. Without power, we get this wounded kind of overly empathic love where everything comes at us and we're truly good people, but we can't hold the energy. We need a good strong solar plexus in order to be able to hold power. And so going back to what we were talking about, we need power to love. It's very, very important right now. Mars is showing us that too. All right, the sun is in Cancer, the sign of the North Node. Mercury retrograde. So Mercury's retrograde means Mercury rules communication. Mercury rules how we communicate, how mass communication, the media. Mercury is going to be, it's retrograde. It's going to go back into Cancer, all the way back to 24 degrees and the degree of the opposite the eclipse. And show us something about communication at this time. The fact that Mercury is retrograde at this time when all of these things are coming out. So in the collective right now, there's a lot of things that are just building and building and building. We're getting ready to have complete revelations. Now we have to be careful because with the eclipse energy, we don't want to eclipse it. We don't want to sweep things under the carpet. So that's why we're here to hold the space that we want things to come out. We want things that are hidden to come out. We want atrocities to come out. And the reason we want them to come out is so that we can stop living in denial. Now, the best way that you can facilitate that is to look at within your own being. This is where and how we must work. You have to look within. We all have to, and understand what role you have played, because it's all one. This is about the energy body of humanity. So there are beings on the planet who have acted out abuse, but it doesn't matter. It's in the whole body. We're one universal consciousness, so we all play a part in that. We're all here together. So we have to deal with it within our own being first and make sure that we're not hiding anything from ourselves. The eclipse, bring it up. Conjunct Pluto around power, sexuality, misuse of power, regeneration, the underworld. Pluto rules the hell realms in the underworld. It also takes us above the abyss when we turn the inversion around. We look within ourselves and say, what part did I play? You'll find something, and then once you find it, it can break up and clear, and you'll become, once we're accountable to ourselves, or it doesn't mean we're taking on the exact things that are coming out, but we all have it within us somewhere. We want to clear it. Oh, it's tricky. That's the tricky work. And the real, if you're on the path of awakening, meaning if your soul is on a trajectory of universal consciousness, not all humanity is there. Most of humanity is living at 3D human consciousness. So they don't even know yet. And that's okay. And so some of us have gone ahead or have just been doing this work longer. If you're on that trajectory, don't be held back by not allowing yourself to see where it is that you've blocked yourself. That's what these eclipses are for. Once you see it, you can let it go. And you can use what I call the trapped energy to serve, to come into service. True service is what is our highest creative energy. All right. So I think that's it. Did I get all the planets? Mercury, Mars. So the big things are Venus opposite Saturn, Mars squaring Uranus is pretty big, and the moon being conjunct Pluto. Eris squaring both of them. So, all right, I'm going to go into, let's see. I already said the archetype of Pluto is Shin, the Holy Spirit. The Hebrew letter for Mars is Pe. It's also another version of the Holy Spirit, the Tower, Shekinah. This energy of this eclipse is pure. It's awakening energy. Saturn brings up karma, and it reveals where our poor foundations are. Malkuth on the tree, it's the earth. What is creating a poor foundation that needs to go into mastery? Okay, we talked about that. We really covered a lot of this. This is great. Okay, so Pluto, sexuality, desire force, sex, power, death. It also rules death. So in some of the more perversion ways of misuse and abuse, death rituals have been combined with sex rituals, and that combination is a true inverting power. Now, sexuality in itself is a death. The power of the orgasmic force is a death and a rebirth. But when we harness that energy for the loss of power, it's what holds the earth in this frequency. And so that's why it's so empowered, so important. This is coming out right now. This energy is so intense. I just want to say, I could have kept writing forever. Okay, I'm going to say two things. So, last night, I went on Google and I just Googled like the greatest atrocities on earth. I'd never done that before. And so I just wanted to see what was coming up. And, things like the starvation in China, I think it was 1958 to 1962, Cambodia, the Ukraine with Stalin, World War I, World War II, some of the things that happened in the church with, the child abuse in the church, one of the biggest institutions on this planet that's ruled under Capricorn, um, and terrorism, and then on and on. But some of these big ones, reading about starvation was really, really touched me. Hearing 45 million people starving at a time and not having food, and then some of the stories I read about on purpose because of misused power. And then, of course, the world wars and some of the intentional, very, very intentional things that have happened there by governments and by most of us have some idea that that's not an organic happening. It's very much engineered. And Leo energy rules that engineering process, how we use smoke and mirrors to get humanity to just go along with it and be in it. That's what's coming to an end with this eclipse. That's what's being brought up. No more. We each have an individual sovereign power. One person, if you've done your inner work truly, and it's a long process, but once you get there and you see it, your power is it's what's the word? Um, when it multiplies over and over, it's exponential. It's huge. One person can change the entire archetype. That's what an avatar is. That's what the Christed energy is. But reading about these things, it really, really touched me with the mother energy of the North Node in Cancer. That how can this be? And it's so sad when you read about, families and their children starving and what they do to try to get a couple bites of food, and how there's a dark, insidious consciousness on this planet that's just doesn't give up. We know that's here. To say that that's not here would be absolutely, you'd have to not understand the history of the world at all to not understand that that dark force is always at work here. Now, can't say everything about it in these last few minutes, but to understand this is real for us until when we awaken, and I talk a lot about this too, there's another world underneath the veil, and it's already here right now. And I work with that world all the time, but we're also coming into this world because it's a crucial window for massive amounts of humanity to wake up. We're in a window. The window is not forever. We're in this great window, and each soul is being invited in and helped in. But when you see that some of these things were even possible, it's just so hard to believe that they could really happen when there's that much love. How come that many people with love in their hearts can't turn that situation around? We're going to continue this conversation. There's a new moon in Leo. We'll be talking more about this as we go. It shows that the planet lost connection with divine love. Now we have art, we have beauty, we have all kinds of amazing things on this planet, but I'm going to minimize this and pull up the screen of chat. But we need to get serious about it. We need to know, artists, you need to get serious about it and anchor in higher octave art that is mirroring. For artists are the mirror of the collective consciousness. So art is often used to try to hold us, because when we look at things that are holding us, we consciousness is so crazy. We sign on to that. But when you bring in higher octave art, you're changing the timelines on the planet. So just going to look at this. Oh, wow. So you had your paternal grandmother testified to the Great Depression, starvation. Yeah. Oh, wow. There's nothing more evil than a human being starving for many, many esoteric reasons. Oh, it's so okay. If anyone has any questions, artists here, nice. Yeah, we're all artists, but I work with a lot of visionary artists. And so right now, if you're a visionary artist, whether you're making music, whether you're making paintings, whether you're making new institutions, new science, we're all artists. I call it the light body artists. Gen X though, oh yeah, I'm Gen X. So what's that about? Oh yeah, Gen X. So yeah, we've got serious stuff going on too. I'll talk about maybe we'll go into the different generations in the next one. So many Capricorn stelliums too. Yes, for sure. Oh, including you. Yeah. That Capricorn stellium is really, and so funny now. Most of my clients coming in right now have that. And it's mind blowing to see the energies that they're dealing with right now. Um, yeah, if you're in your Saturn return right now, just embrace the change. Yeah, use the energy of union. That's amazing. You what was lost was union. It's obvious. We couldn't have a world where people starve and where these things happen if we lost union. Believe it or not, a lot of the people holding the space and the placeholders of the dark forces don't even are so blind in the dark. It's some of it's generational and they don't even know what's happening. So what's going to be revealed right now is um is a lot of the sexual crimes against children and those who are underage are coming out. Huge things around human trafficking, huge, are coming out. Around ritual abuse and around, and just that's going to lead to an awakening of just us understanding what we'll never be able to. There's never going to be one doctrine of sexuality for everyone, and that would be a mistake to think religions could push one rule of sex, because that's just dominance and patriarchal rule. When you try to tell people it has to be one way, you create more resistance. However, there are mysteries, and in the inner mystery, I teach the inner mystery school of divine love and light body tantra. There are certain things that do facilitate a very high level connection. Okay, so huge, nice to see you. I'm just scrolling back through these. Okay, see if there's any more. Very intense. Blessings to everybody. So what's the next video? I think I'm going to try to do the Leo new moon before I travel. I'm getting ready to travel, going to the West Coast, and it was so nice to see all of you. Come back and let me know in the comment section at what you're experiencing right now and what you think. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say. Humanity's changing. We don't know how it's going to go down, but things are changing. Be anchored in your truth. Be rooted in love. Be active in your community and know who you are so that you can be a voice during this time and not go into fear. Venus is asking us to raise fear. The lower octave of Saturn is fear. Raise it up. The higher octave is building the new and mastery. And so that being said, just gonna just check the time. I think we gotta go. Okay, so we gotta close out. And it was so nice to see everyone. Wishing you a really sacred full moon, lunar eclipse in Capricorn. I invite you to say the I am in the 7 directions, just to call in your higher self. We say, I am before me. I am behind me. I am at my left. I am at my right. I am above me. I am below me. I am unto me. I am, I am, I know I am. I am, I am, I know I am. You can always use that in, or any version of anything, just to remind yourself your electric magnetic field is your true consciousness and your true home. And so I will see you next time. Namaste.